Once again, back, it's the incredible Dale Valor's Inner Game Podcast. I'm rapper turned dating coach Dale Valor, your inner game wingman. Listen, here's the deal. If you're new to this podcast, what we're talking about is inner game. What is inner game? Inner game is the relationship that you have with you. If all the other relationships in your life are suffering, in large part, and usually it's due to the relationship that you have with you sucks, right? So if you don't like yourself, how can you expect anybody else to either? So here's the deal, man. We're going to go deep on so many inner game concepts in this podcast. I really am glad that you're here. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. If you're a long timer, welcome back. And let's hop in. All right, so I am super excited about doing this one, and I know why you're laughing. No, but for real though, I'm really excited about doing this. I haven't, here's the thing. I haven't been doing too many podcast episodes lately, just because I've got a ton of things going on, but I thought this one was super important to do, but I've got a ton slated for the future. I mean, I got some crazy stuff lined up, but we haven't gotten there yet. And here we are today. And unfortunately, my trusted confidant, Shabam, has probably got his head on his pillow, all nice and snug, in the jungles of India, passed out sleeping. But that's okay, though, because we keep the party rolling. So this is what I've been wanting to do for a while. I don't think I've had a episode where I've had an actual student that I have worked with, things like that. You did a free class with me once, didn't you?
I've done several free classes with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I was going to say, I was pretty sure we did something like that, but a lot of this stuff tends to run together for me because it's just like, I can't remember where I said stuff. I can't remember, you know what I mean? What day it is half the time and things like that. But we got my man, Mike Johnson, on today, and he's been, working with me for quite some time, and just seeing his growth and just seeing what he's accomplishing now versus when we first started working together has been just a complete, 180. I almost said 360, but that doesn't really work. But yeah, I mean, it has been a complete just transformation. All like to the point, I remember telling you in a call not that long ago, I'm like, man, you might want to consider coaching at some point or something like that, man. I think you could do it,
Yeah, that was a really big compliment. I really appreciated that. I know that I still have my own personal hurdles I need to get through, but it would be something that I think I would find really fulfilling, and I would super love to do.
Yeah, man. And that's the thing is a lot of times, and I think your mindset for this is just perfect. A lot of times people, they come to coaches, they come to Modern Success and things like that. And they expect immediate results, immediate turnaround, just going from, 0 to 60 in 2.3 seconds. And, and the thing is like, look, I get it. I totally understand what, when somebody is really, going through it and they're lonely and they just keep getting rejected left and right and things like that. And they're just like, man, this is it. I think this is the thing that will help me. And they're not wrong. It is the thing that will help them. But, it's like, man, it's like going to the doctor and being like, yeah, I'm not feeling too great. And they're like, oh yeah, you got terminal cancer. And they're like, okay, so I'm like good in like one chemotherapy session, right? I mean, it's like, no, man, we got to do a lot of work to get you to where it is that you need to be. And so, and people think incorrectly that means that's the end of their problems. Like moving forward, I will never have these types of problems ever again. And you know what? And this is what I'm getting at here with your particular mindset about this. Yeah, guess what? Everybody is going to encounter new problems. You know, if you're just experiencing the same problems and you're never experiencing new problems, all that speaks to is stagnation. It means you're not growing. You know, if you overcame one goal, guess what? You got a new goal in front of you. And guess what? That new goal is going to have its own set of issues, problems, things to work out, and stuff like that. It's a never ending journey, right? Hopefully that doesn't sound depressing.
It certainly doesn't sound depressing to me. I've been in, a growth journey before I kind of joined this program, but more in a work-related growth journey. I went through my master's degree, and one of the big mottos of my school was, always keep improving, always keep growing, always keep learning new things. Mm-hmm. And then when I found this sort of space, it just kind of clicked. That piece clicked really heavily, and been like, oh, okay, well, they're not just talking about my career. They can talk about my personal self-improvement, doing better with people in general. Is kind of the direction I've taken it. But it certainly is, you're never going to be perfect at everything. So you can always grow and learn something new.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I know your backstory and things like that. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I could be like 100% wrong about this, but, I think that, personal transformation and just trying to improve, trying to grow, I think has been somewhat of a mainstay for your adult life because, you were like crazy overweight and things like that. And, worked into, being in shape and, and hey, like that takes a lot of effort, you ain't got to tell me, but
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I pretty destitute sort of background. I grew up very poor and, somehow poor people always manage to get overweight. I'm not really sure how that makes sense, but it seems to. So I had a lot of depression in my younger days, being made fun of in school, until eventually, I got a really great group of friends and, all that, there was no more any bullying. I'm a very large person height wise as well. So a lot of that kind of went away, but the mental sort of scarring never went away. Mm-hmm. And so that was something that held me back for a long, long time until, like I said, I began to, especially through you, is realizing, those truths that, they weren't truths then, but the truths that I thought were there, they're fictitious. I made them up. Yeah. And moving past those things is really, a big goal of mine.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, I remember one time with a different student, I was doing a hypnosis session and kind of like what you were saying, it's like, the way that you perceive yourself is not the way that other people necessarily perceive you, right? Sometimes it is, if you know that you're being a jerk and everybody's treating you like you're being a jerk, well, okay, you probably got a pretty good gauge on it. But a lot of times, it's like we get in our own heads and we make these suggestions to ourselves and then base all of our decisions and the actions that we're going to take or not take predicated on stuff that other people aren't even thinking. It's like false information or, false or bad intel, and then that can lead to just a world of problems because you just happen to see yourself in this certain way. And like you had been heavy like that up until that point, for a while, and then you're not, but you still think of yourself as that, even though you're not. Nobody's looking at you and being like, wow, this dude's like obese, man. Like, God, man, like nobody's looking at you like that, but you still think like that because you've formed a habit in your mind of just thinking about that on a regular basis, and it becomes pervasive. And so in this hypnotherapy session that I did, I had a guy who, much like yourself, you know, was really big, and then he had lost a lot of weight, and that was still his big sticking point. Was he was like, man, I just, you know, it's just like I know that people, you know, like I know obviously that the scale don't lie. I know that I'm not as big as I was by any stretch, but I still feel like that's how people look at me. And what I had him do was get a picture of him, his favorite picture of him, by the way, of when he was big, you know, and I had him burn it, you know, like set it on fire. And and that was really helpful for him, you know, to start kind of seeing himself in a new light in the way that other people are more likely to see him. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, man, I mean, coming up like that and everything, was there like one type of circumstance that stands out to you that's like, you know what, this is it, man. I've got to do something. You know, like I've got to make some type of change here in my dating life or whatever. That just was that catalyst to say, I need help with this.
Oh, absolutely. I remember I just bought my house, so financially, work wise, I was doing excellent, fantastic, never done better in my life. But I was looking around, and some of my best friends, they were wrapped up in their own things, and I only had three really good best friends at that point, and those were all the people that I hung out with.
Yeah,
and they were wrapped up in their own things, and I caught myself just being at the house by myself, watching TV alone constantly. And it was probably after a couple of months of that I just, I was in a very dark, negative headspace, and I saw a couple of videos from, some other coaches in the program, and I was just like, I need this. This is a sign. I need to change, because sitting alone at home in the dark by myself would never be a happy point for me. I'm a very social guy. I love interacting with people. I love going places and doing things, meeting people, learning people, experiencing things with others, and just sitting by myself for months on end, except for the 1 or 2 days a week I might, catch somebody and go get dinner or something. It's just, it almost broke me. And that was it. I remember laying in my bed, I was watching TikTok, and, just thinking how miserable of an existence it was. And then somehow I came across that other coach's TikToks, and I was like, this is it. Like, this is something, I need to do this, or I'm never going to escape this cycle of nothing.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that so many, especially now, like, was this post-pandemic or?
Oh yeah, this was post-pandemic.
Okay. So
this was 2 years ago.
Okay. Gotcha. So, like, I've been doing this a while. Right. And so, I notice just a huge, and I'm not the only one, it's not like I'm some savant, so, like sociologist or something, but, I notice such a significant difference in people since the pandemic in terms of like loneliness and stuff like that, because, you kind of find that most people, they fall into habits, right? And it's just like, well, and so many people are working from home, right? Like, I know you don't, but there's so many people that do. And you know what, like, I'll even use myself to an extent for this example. I was just kind of thinking about this today. Like, so many people, they just don't really leave their house, and in 2 years or a year and a half of that kind of being the norm, and you're working from home, so you don't really have to like get ready to go anywhere. And then you're like, no, it's already 6:00 now, and where am I going to go anyway? And so it just becomes this, hermit type of lifestyle, and like just today, I had this thought. I was like, man, it's so interesting. I have literally talked to, I don't know, 80 people at that point when I was thinking this today. But I haven't seen, outside of my wife, I haven't seen anybody in person. I've not talked to one single person in person, and like, how weird is that, man? Like talking to all these people. And I venture to say a lot of those people that I was talking to is in that same exact situation too. It's just like right now, like everything's virtual, right? But that doesn't excuse having real in-person interaction, and I remember talking to one of the guys in the program who kind of fell into a rut a little bit, where he had moved to a new city and his work was just like dominating his time. And the city that he moved to is very family centric, family oriented, I guess. So yeah. His peers at work, they're, most of them are married, have kids, things like that. He's a single guy. There's not a whole lot of things to do, apparently. I was kind of challenged him on that because it's a big city. I'm like, come on, man.
Oh yeah.
There's places, but he comes to one of my classes. This was just last week. He comes to one of my classes and he's like, yeah, this is my social outlet. And I'm like, that's got to change, man. This cannot be your social outlet. Like, it's cool. Glad you're here, but this is not, this is not a substitute for being face to face with people.
Absolutely. You get so much different energy, feelings, vibes, whatever anybody wants to call it. You get so much feedback from that in person, because you don't have to necessarily touch, but typically you're going to shake hands. That's a physical interaction. Maybe you'll hug. That's a physical interaction. Mm-hmm. And it's those, thinking back to, something I heard a long time ago is that, babies don't develop properly without that human touch of a parent.
A baby will die.
Exactly. And, adults are much the same. Like, you need that physical contact, that human presence. There's, a physical energy about everybody. And because our bodies generate electrical energy. We're a living creature. That's what we do. And there's something about those energies being near each other that's totally different from, just seeing somebody over the internet, which is much better than not seeing anybody.
Right. True.
It's taken half the step. You need to take a full step, be around the people.
Right.
So I absolutely feel it. I agree with you. You have to have that physical connection.
Yeah. And, like those half steps or half measures, like a lot of times people think that like, well, that's good enough, and it's like, is it though? It's really not, like the old adage, good is the enemy of great, and if you're, if you're a guy that is lonely, you just don't have companionship in your life, you don't have friends like that. You certainly don't have women like that, like, look, like you said, better than nothing, but it's not where you really need to be or where you should even want to be, And so, okay, so you're like, all right, I got to this is a change I have to make. This is something that needs to happen, right? So you start with Modern Success. Like, what was your initial kind of like thoughts? You have all this stuff coming at you. You got classes, you got the roadmap, you got the master class, you got, like all these things coming at you. Like, what was your thought process?
Oh man, there's so many different thoughts. Really, it's like, is this going to work for me? Is this all like mumbo jumbo? Or are these people just trying to steal my money? Because a big piece of it, the way everything works. I mean, it can feel like that 100%. And then, I started digging into the material, and then you have to take the action. You have to try it. And, as you're first starting off, you're first doing it, you're tripping, you're falling. You're like, this doesn't work. It's not working. And then you kind of see, as you're continuing to do it, you kind of see, oh, that did work. It didn't work really well, like they're saying it could, but it worked. And as you kind of tweak and you toggle and you change and you morph, not only to the way you're doing it, because I mean, it's just like playing a video game. You buy a brand new video game straight out the box, you're going to be bad at it. You don't have the tools, you don't have the equipment, you don't have the knowledge, you don't know how the mechanics work. And it's the same thing. It's, you have to learn, you have this new tool, and how to speak to them, and you have to learn how to use it properly, trial and error. And then when you get it, it's a night and day. It's like, man, I can now jump across this chasm when before I kept falling in and having to start over. It's the same thing. I could, start a conversation with, women or people in general, and it would fall flat. But now I know what makes a conversation interesting. I know how to make things personally connect. And another thing I was very concerned about is, how much of this is going to be, I'm tricking somebody into something that I'm not. Yeah. But when you truly do this correctly, you're not tricking them. You're doing a better job explaining of who you are.
Right.
Communicating who you are and what you care about and what's important to you. And, some of it's gimmicky. How do you get their attention in the first place? But everything after that is very genuine. It's like, this is who I am. This is what I represent. And if you like it, which you should, because I'm a high value person, then, we can have a conversation. And, it doesn't, I've had it very few times turn out poorly. They have to be in a very negative headspace for the conversation to not usually land, because people genuinely are very okay with getting to learn new people. Don't be needy. Give them something, give them energy, give them a great story, give them a great, time meeting you, and people they love it.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, I was just talking to a guy today who, he was like, what I really like about you guys is that this is somebody that's not in the program. All right. It's just somebody who might be in the program. We'll see what happens. But, he was like, what I really like about you guys, what really resonates with me is the authenticity in what it is. He's like, the content that I've seen, the videos, the reels, the stories, whatever. He's like, you guys are just so genuine and authentic. And he was like, it's not like, he's like, I've seen my fair share of like pickup videos and things like that. He's like, it's not pickup-y or anything like that. It's just really genuine, but you're doing it in such a way that it just like lands, And I was like, dude, you hit the nail on the head, man. Like that really is what it is, And so to your point, it's like, man, so many people that I've talked to about like, the dating space, the dating coaching space and things like that. They're often, I shouldn't say often, but sometimes, I encounter that where it's like, well, I don't want to be somebody I'm not, like people need to just accept me for who I am. And if they can't accept me, then then too bad, and things like that. And it's like, I get where those people are coming from. I do, but at the same time, it's not about changing fundamentally who you are. It's just an evolution of what already exists into a better version of that, right? Like a snake sheds its skin to become a bigger snake, you're not the same at 30 that you were at 20. You certainly aren't the same at 20 as you were at 10, So like us as people, we have a propensity for growth, for becoming better versions of ourselves. If we allow that to happen, we can become a worse version of ourselves if we don't check it,
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you could, but I mean, bottom line, I think most people, they don't want to become a worse version of themselves. But, but at the end of the day, look, if you aren't growing, that's not, it's not about changing who you are. It's just becoming better. That's all. That's it. Like when I started in my journey, I didn't have, and you guys are so lucky, man. Honest to God, like anybody watching this, like anybody that, is in our program or just consuming content and things like that, you don't know how lucky you guys are, man.
No, this is very much the dating for dummies sort of like guidebook here. Everything's been done already. We're told how we can execute it. It's whether or not we take the time to learn it and especially practice the execution is really the there.
Yeah, the thing is like like for me, I didn't have access to anything like this, like Modern Success or, that there were some coaches, don't get me wrong, floating around here and there, but there were very few and they didn't have programs like Zoom and all this. None of that existed, And so you didn't have like these well thought out, presented, step, color by number, step by step, however you want to word it, type of programs. It was like the best you could really get was a boot camp. That was like the best that you could get. And boot camps are great. Not saying that they're not. I do them all the time. But, but I mean, the weekend's over. That's it. You're not talking to that guy again unless you get another boot camp.
No continuing education, no picking the brains, no, like you said, it's a literal book essentially of, books and videos and guides. And, you have a question, I can message you and, it might take some time. You're a busy guy, but you'll always get back to me. You've always gotten back to me. And so is every other coach to make sure that they answer the question that I have. And that's been such a huge resource by itself is, that feedback that, I did this, I did that. What are your thoughts? And then you're like, oh, well, this is maybe where things went wrong. And then I replay it in my head and I'm like, yeah. No, I could see that.
Yeah. Like where you're at now, like I would say like, if I was to kind of like put a gauge on it, or some type of, like a stock market type of graph, right? Like your progress was kind of like slow and steady, like an upward trajectory. Then all of a sudden it was like, boom, you know what I mean? And like for where you're at now, like it took me like 4.5 years to get to where you're at now, and that was because I didn't have the ability to have a learning curve. Everything was, I had to figure it out, And I mean, I had a couple of resources here and there, and there was ebooks and news groups and things like that. But I didn't even have YouTube, man. Like YouTube was like just came out at that point, like was way new, and nobody was like utilizing it like that. It was all just like, the chocolate video and like, stuff like that.
It's like trying to learn how to build a boat from scratch. Is there, how do you build a boat? Guides and resources and books, like you said, at that point, no YouTube. And you could ask, your buddy or, a guy down the street who built a boat, but he's not going to stand there and watch you. You got to do it on your own.
Right.
So a lot of technique learning and, hunting and pecking, and it's just a very difficult time. So I'm super grateful that, I have the program and I have, this list in front of me. If I have a question, I'm like, okay, there it is.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, you've heard me tell the story before, I think, but for anybody that doesn't know, like my whole journey just started asking people where the soup aisle was at the grocery store. Like that was my starting point because I was so bad with communicating with people, with talking to people and stuff like that. And Luke, right? Do you know Luke?
I don't think I do.
Okay. All right. Luke in the program. I remember talking to him, I don't know, a few months back, and he was just like, he hadn't heard that story. And he was just like, he was like, that almost sounds like you made that up. He was like, I can hardly believe that, he was just like seeing you now, like just doing this, you know what I mean? Like you were so socially stunted to that point, like it's like, I can't even imagine it. And I'm like, well, one, it's 100% true, but two, I can hardly imagine it, just because of the growth. And so that's the beauty of like like our program, Modern Success and everything, which, you've experienced, is that time is so truncated to a degree of like, yeah, it's overnight. Hey, look, there's no miracle workers, right? No one's got the magic pill that's just going to turn somebody who's, very socially awkward or inept or whatever to being, Don Juan Casanova over here in a matter of hours. You know what I mean? Like, hey, like, let's be real. But man, like you and other guys, you know what I mean? Like, just the level of growth is in such a short amount, at least short relative to me,
right?
Is just amazing to me. So what's something like it, okay, so you're in the you you're like, man, is this even going to work for me? Or is, like these guys just trying to hustle my loot? Is, like, what was like the one thing, if there is one, that you can point to where you're like, oh, like kind of like the Matrix opened up. You're just like, oh, okay, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, was there like one kind of like moment or?
I'd say that I've had several moments like that. The first one, and me and you've had a lot of conversations about this, is just like, even in the very beginnings, right? You approach a girl, and in your head you're just filled with doubt. You're like, oh, I'm gonna go up there, I'm gonna talk to her. She's gonna be like, get away from me, you're a loser. And then you go up there and you talk to her, and she's excited that you're there. She's excited to have a conversation with you. And that's not every time. And as you build your skills, it's more times. But even part of the program, or part of the training is you keep approaching, and then you can see that they're not going to be mad that you're there so many times. So that was a huge one for me. Is these people are sometimes indifferent, but sometimes they're excited to have a conversation with me, because that one time I said the right things, and I don't know how I got there, but I got there. I opened her up, and she loved having a conversation with me. And then I walked away, and I was like, that was great. And I tried it again. I stumbled, and I was like, oh man, what happened? And eventually, the more and more you do it, the more and more it's like, there it is. Like, this is how I have a conversation. This is how I, not entertain people, but have a good time with a group of people. Mm-hmm. And show who I am. And that's a big attraction piece, is them learning who you are in the right manner, to the right place.
Yeah.
So and the program teaches you that. They're like, how do you tell a story? It's not, well, I woke up this morning, and then I drove to work, and then I drove home, end of story. It's, oh man, I had a crazy day. I woke up, my alarm was going off. I was 15 minutes late. I was panicking. And then, I zoomed to work. I thought I was going to get, arrested for speeding. And then at the end of the day, or in the middle of the day, I had a great lunch. The day finished off really well, and I casually strolled home, and, it turned out to be a very fun day. And that's the difference. Those are the kind of things that you learn, is how do we, extrapolate and, show emotion and be somebody wants to talk to. Yeah. Not that that I was ever innately a bad person. It's just that I was innately, maybe not a great communicator.
Yeah.
And that's the big epiphany, is it's communication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know what? I think I think one of the fundamental flaws that most guys have when it comes to like even that concept, is that they want to, they want to be accepted for who they are. I get it. I do. You know what I mean? I totally understand that. But they would rather tell somebody who they are than show somebody who they are.
Right.
And if you tell somebody who you are, I mean, okay, cool, but that's just not going to be the experience the experience that woman is going to come away with is going to be much lower than if she can experience who you are, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the difference maker. Like, that's not you being fraudulent and trying to be somebody else. It's kind of like this. When I don't know, maybe you'll know what I'm talking about, but like you're watching a TV show or something like that, right? A series. And maybe there's 5 or 6 episodes in this season, and you're getting a gauge of who these characters are and stuff like that, and what they're about, their personalities, things like that. And then maybe like the 7th episode, they're showing like a couple of like backstories of particular characters, right? And you're seeing how that person got to be the way that they are, right? So now you can kind of empathize with that character instead of just like observing and just kind of like, well, that's just how they are, right? Like you get a big, much more understanding of who that is. And so that's kind of what it's like. That, to me, it's like, you are, just by the way that you're communicating yourself through body language, tonality, facial expressions, all that kind of thing, like, and flowering up the language a little bit. So is that now they can empathize, they get it, because they can feel, like you said earlier about energy exchange and stuff like that. Now they can feel who you are as opposed to just hearing who you are.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's a big piece between, is this person bragging? I have a boat and I have a mansion and I have, a plane. Or are they telling you a story? Are they telling you how they got those things, right? And that's a huge difference. It's, Amelia, like, you earning something or gaining it somehow, bragging that you have it. I have these things versus, oh, this is how I got these things. Not only is it the more entertaining thing, but it's also it leads to more empathy. They know who you are. They know how you got there. And ultimately it's like, when you look at your good friends, they know who you are. They know why you hate, wearing, long shorts instead of short shorts. They know it's a bad example, but they know why you do it. Other people don't.
Right.
And until you're able to share that with them, they're going to, never understand you.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%. And that's the thing too. Well, I like what you said there, because it's like, your friends, they know you for you and your quirks and weirdo stuff and whatever. And
super short shorts.
Yeah. Why do you think camera's right here? But I mean, the thing is that, all like strangers are, and people that you don't know are just simply that, people they're friends that you don't know. And if they come away from that initial interaction feeling like, I know this person, like I had a half-hour conversation with that person and I feel like I've known that person all my life. That is crazy. And you don't think that that's a connection? Of course it is, right? And so I love that, like that you're able to do that and able to communicate yourself that way and things like that, So what I got to know, I don't think we've ever talked about this. What is the biggest win that you've had?
Honestly, it's just, the self-confidence that I have now. Before, I would be a lot more negative on myself than what I am now. And it's the biggest win. I have so many more friends, I guess, is probably that's another big win. If I were to make 2 biggest wins,
yeah,
I feel so many more doors are open that I thought were shut before. I have I made so many connections with so many people, men, women, old, young, and I've had such a great time doing it. Whereas if I hadn't explored this space and, joined, the program, or at least push forward and, trying to do something of a similar nature, I would have never met so many fun, interesting people. I would never have so many fun, cool stories, like some of the stories I have with you in Santa Monica, or in Austin, or in Denver, or in Fort Lauderdale. I mean, I would probably still have never been to Los Angeles or California almost at all if it weren't for, me wanting to push myself and do the boot camps. But also, again, I would have never been there. I would have never experienced those areas, or met the people that I met, or had the crazy fun adventures, like going off with a stranger to a house party and getting thrown out of the house party because one of the guys who lived there didn't like me because he liked the girl that brought me there. And it's just like, what is going on? What is happening right now? It's just kind of, those kind of memories that, I would never be able to replicate before, or never replicate something just like that ever again. But, it's a story. It's a true story. It happened. Yeah. And thinking about it kind of makes me, smile and giggle, because I was like, what a crazy time. Right. What an adventure that was.
Yeah. I was telling my wife not that long ago, it's like, I'm pretty sure, like I'm like 90% sure that there's any major city in this country that I would have a place to stay. You know what I mean? If I just happen to find myself in Chicago or LA or Phoenix or New York or wherever, right. Like I'm pretty sure I could just hit up a couple of people and I'm in, you know what I mean? And, but I know the top story though that you have is that, that guy calling you and be like, hey, I found this phone in the bathroom.
Yeah. No, walking through the airport. Hey, there's this phone in the bathroom. You were the last one he talked to. And I'm like, oh, snap. Thank you. That was random.
Well, you said Denver, and that's what that made me think of. But all right, well, cool, man. Mike, I want to thank you for coming on, man. It's always a pleasure. And yeah, man, like, I mean, you're hearing it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, like this is no joke. We don't play around. I mean, we have a good time, but we don't play around, And when it's time to get down to business, it's about growth. It's about self-improvement. It's about accomplishing the goals that you have set for yourself that you want to see fulfilled, that you're like, man, I don't know if I can ever get there. It's not that you can't ever get there. It's that, hey, sometimes you need a help. You need a helping hand to help get you there, get you across that finish line. It's not always a one-man show, and so, that's what this is all about, being a brotherhood and being a community for guys to be able to facilitate all the type of stuff that we talked about in this particular episode. And then, so, I mean, there's so many things. I mean, we could probably do this for like 8 hours, No,
we could talk about this for a while.
Yeah, no doubt. Just in the interest of time, right? So, but again, Mike, thanks for coming on, man. And all right, guys, we will talk to you soon. And on to the next one. Well, man, I know that you got a lot of information out of this particular episode. Listen, if you need to go a little bit deeper, always feel free to reach out to me. Look, there's a few ways you can do that. You can shoot me an email. You can send me a DM. I'm easy to find. But the best place that you can find me is at freegiftfromdale.com. It's in the description of the episode. And you're going to get a couple of free gifts there. You'll get the first chapter of my book, Inner Game. And you will also find an exercise to help you find out about yourself and who you really, truly are at the core. Okay. And listen, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, or the podcast, make sure you do so, man. It takes you 1 second to do it. It means the world to us here. Okay. If you know somebody who could really use this information, feel free to share it, man. Don't hold it to yourself. You know what I mean? So we will see you in the next one.